This is the Welcome to Humanity podcast with thought leader and transformative psychiatrist, Dr. Fred Moss. This show focuses on the betterment of humanity on a global scale. Each episode will leave you enlightened, inspired, and ready to make an impact in your world. Welcome to the show. Welcome to your life. Welcome to humanity. Here's Dr. Fred.
All right. Well, let's see. Got you guys frozen temporarily. That's kind of sad.
Well, that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of the conversation we were just having with our guest, actually.
Oh, yeah. About frozen shoulder.
About being frozen in ice.
Oh, and then, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Double frozen. Triple frozen. Okay. So, Sam, we really do have some sort of a special guest today, although he's having a day. He's having a day from hell, kind of.
He's having a
rough ride. And
yeah.
Who is this guy? What's happening? Why is he a guest on our show?
Well, it's kind of appropriate. Isn't it? Like the guy that we are interviewing today just happens to have been going through this somewhat paralyzing experience following cryotherapy yesterday, and he's talking with someone who's had a paralyzing experience for the past 22 years. So it's perfect.
Exactly.
I honestly feel guilty complaining to you, Sam, because I know that you are a warrior, but it's just, it's so, I am always like the most fit, the most active, and to be in this condition is just horrible. But you know what? I don't even want to talk about it, and I'll tell you why. There's so many great, amazing things to talk about that I mean, this is a temporary thing. Thank goodness, this is going to pass, and it's not going to define me for the rest of my life. So let's just forget about this and move on.
Yeah,
let's dig in and move on.
You know, Bill, before we got started, you asked us these two questions, and then we made an executive decision to get online and actually answer them. And those two questions, as I recall, were something like some very scary question, like what do me and Sam like to do on this show? And then the second one is who our viewership is. And normally we've done this on Zencastr, and it's pretty much a free-for-all on the show. Now, what we're really looking at is we're looking at the interface between sanity and insanity. And so the name of the show is In Sanity, and we're really looking at that ever-elusive interface between what it is to be really, feel crazy versus being crazy in a crazy world. And we do that by having just raucousy conversations, sometimes humorous conversations, other times semi-intelligent. That's as high as we can get. So if you'll excuse us, semi-intelligent conversations at sometimes. And then sometimes we just talk about farts and stuff.
Yeah, so, we have yet to get beyond semi-intelligent.
That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Certainly not the two of us, that's for sure. So you want to introduce our guest, Fred?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to go with the question that we ask in Welcome to Humanity, which is, Bill Dorfman, who are you? Like, really? And can you introduce yourself? And look, you're a monster of the Midway, dude. And whatever you're about to say, I get that it's challenging to describe yourself for who you really are, both for us and for the world around you and for you. So I really get, honestly, that this is a challenging question to introduce your own self on a show. But please, if you will, give us a college try on that.
And I'll just say, too, that this is an invitation to go beyond the traditional bio and into the spirit of who you really are. And the spirit of who you really are is pretty damn impressive. And your accomplishments have been really damn impressive. I would also really want to know, what is the spirit of Bill Dorfman? Tell us.
I think the best way to start for somebody who really doesn't know me at all is, let me tell you what my mantra for life is, because I really live it. And I think it helps define who I am and why I do what I do. I grew up really poor. I mean, with nothing. People often think, I was fed with a silver spoon. It couldn't be further from the truth. I had nothing, and nobody ever gave me anything. I mean, I worked my ass off from the time I was born and got scholarships, and and I worked, and I started working when I was 5 years old, picking weeds in the neighborhood, and then from that I went on to being a janitor at a nursery school, and from that I was a box boy at Ralph's and Swenson's, and I mean,
And where
on and
was
on
this
and
from?
on.
In
Granada Hills.
Granada Hills.
The home of John Elway. John Elway made us famous. So my mantra for life is learn so you can earn and then return. And that's really what I've done, Sam. I challenged myself to be the best dentist I could be. And not just that, but along the way, when I got these different opportunities in life, you guys know about my program for kids. It's called LEAP. It's a motivational leadership program. And that's part of my return is, helping kids be successful in life and giving them the tools that they need to be as successful as possible. Along the road, I always tell kids, listen, don't wait for opportunities in life. Make them. If I meet another millennial who tells me they're waiting for the universe to show them something, I think I'll scream and tear my hair out. Like, the universe is pretty dang busy right now, and it's not going to give you anything. And when you do get an opportunity, Sam, don't take it, master it. And there's a big difference.
Yeah, tell us about that difference.
Well, let me tell you something. I got the break of my life in my dental career from ABC. I was on the very first reality show, Extreme Makeover. And, that show really defined my career in so many ways. I mean, and my company. And when I watched the first few episodes of that show, I will honestly tell you, I stunk. Like, bad. Like, they should have fired me. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no camera presence. I looked like a deer in headlights. I mean, the dentistry I could do, but they don't teach you in dental school how to do dentistry with lights, camera, action, and all that, right? And so I was smart enough to know how bad I was. So I took acting classes, hosting classes, teleprompting classes. I joined the Groundlings Theater, so I learned improv. I actually hired Rami Warman Black. She's a woman that trains all the kids on American Idol how to do media. And I learned how to do an interview. I learned how to talk to a camera. They do these things called OTFs in reality TV. Those are on the fly interviews. That's where they stick a microphone in your face and say, Sam, tell me why Lisa's teeth are so messed up and what it means to her. And you're like I wasn't ready for that, But now I know they're going to ask that. So as I'm working on Lisa, I'm thinking about things. And, there are little subtle things that make such a big difference. For instance, if I say, Lisa came in and her mouth was just disgusting. Like, it was the grossest thing I've ever seen. Versus Lisa came in and said, Doc, my mouth is disgusting. It's the grossest thing anybody's ever seen. There's a huge difference, because in the first one, I'm basically stating her words. You can't judge me. You can't say, oh, you're a jerk. Like, how can you talk about somebody like that? She said that, right? But if I, as a dentist, am sitting here like, oh, yes, and Lisa came in and she's disgusting and gross and all that, you'd be like, what a jerk dentist you are.
Right.
And it's such a subtle thing, but you don't learn that in dental school. You learn that in media training. I'll tell you one of the most powerful things I learned in doing interviews. Don't answer questions you don't want to answer, but don't say, I don't want to answer that. If you ask me, Dr. Bill, I know you sold your company in 2010 for a lot of money. How much money did you make? I'm not going to say that publicly. You know what I mean?
Right.
But if I say to you, Sam, I'm not going to say that publicly, now I look like a jerk. So what I say is, you know what, Sam? It was a glorious day, but that's not the important part. The important part is my company helped raise over $45 million for children's charities.
Incredible.
So I didn't answer your question. I answered a question, but I answered a question that I really want to share with the world as opposed to one I don't want to share with the world.
Yeah.
And that, my friend, doesn't happen by accident. It's called media training, and you do it over and over again.
You made it consistent with your value system.
Yeah. It's like playing chess. You have to think 3 moves ahead. If I say this, they're going to think that. And so you have to say, okay, what message do I want my listener to get? And then I have to be consistent with that. And even if you as the interviewer are going off the rails, I get to control the interview, which is really kind of cool, but it's a skill. It's not something that most of us just naturally know how to do.
I'm going to have to work on that with regards to Fred's Hawaiian shirt and see whether it's something that I should come across with the initiating the judgment, or wait until Fred says something about his Hawaiian shirt first. And
yeah, it was the only shirt left in the closet today because I haven't done laundry for 6 weeks. So it was just all that was left. And luckily it still fits. And you can't see the hole at the bottom.
I like it.
Oh, there you go.
It makes me happy.
All right. Well,
I think this entire, I think it really works in combination with the red tinted glasses and the necklace and so forth too. I almost feel sorry for people who are just listening and not watching this, because this is quite the attire you've got, or that you're rocking today, Fred. Yeah,
it's a matter of putting on an illusion of actually having my shit together, and I can do that when I need to. It's important when you take control of an interview to at least give the people in the room some sense of pleasure and confidence that I have some clue about how to take over or be at the front edge of an interview. So the clothing thing is just another little bump towards the illusion that I have a clue. So I appreciate you noticing that. Each and every one of us is really dealing with something, right? No matter whether we're tackling some of the big problems in the world or maybe even the tiny ones, we all face challenges. Now, I've been a psychiatrist for many years, and I've worked with all kinds of people from all walks of life. I've worked with more people than I can really count, from various backgrounds, dealing with more issues than you can imagine, of all sizes and shapes. So naturally, over time, I've developed a number of ways to assist others in gaining a new sense of freedom and empowerment. Now, I'm pulling back the curtain on one of those methodologies, and I'm going public, revealing the process and associated mindset that contributed to using this particular method with maximum effectiveness. It's all laid out in my new book called Creative Aid: Healing Through Creativity and Self-Expression. You can pick this book up on Amazon.com in either Kindle or paperback format. And as a listener to the Welcome to Humanity podcast, I'd like to offer you a completely free copy in audiobook format. Just go to welcometohumanity.net/creative and download your free audiobook copy of Creative Aid today. I really look forward to hearing about your Creative Aid breakthrough. Now, let's get back to this amazing conversation.
So Bill, you sort of answered a question that I was going to ask anyway, which is, you were talking about becoming the best dentist that you possibly could be. And when you said that, I started thinking, okay, what does it actually entail to be the best dentist that you could possibly be? Never would I have imagined improv, acting classes, voice classes, learning how to connect in front of an audience. So how much of the best dentist that you could possibly be was sort of informed by your media direction? And to what degree was it informed by the media direction and where that took you? And to what degree are we also talking about technical expertise as well?
Well, I think we have to compartmentalize different parts of my career. For instance, the American Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry is pretty much where I learned everything I needed to learn about cosmetic dentistry. When I graduated dental school, porcelain veneers weren't even invented yet. 99% of the cosmetic procedures I do, from veneers to implants to tooth whitening, none of this was there yet. So a big part of being a good technical dentist is CE, continuing ed, and continuing to go through that. They have different levels of skill sets that you can actually attain in the AACD. The first being an accredited member, which is very, very difficult. There are maybe only a few hundred accredited members. And then taking it one level further is a fellow in the academy. I did both of those. So I really reached for the highest accreditation that I could in that academy. Plus, I published articles for years and years and years, and it really keeps you on top of your game. I mean, every time a patient comes in that I do anything cosmetically, I take photographs and I look at the befores and the afters and I study it and I challenge myself and I post it. I mean, go on my Instagram. Every third post is a dental post. So I think that really keeps you at the top of your game. Now, media, dentistry, literally no relation for 99.99999% of dentists.
Sure.
But let me tell you about an opportunity where I didn't just take it, I mastered it. So ABC gives me this amazing opportunity to be the featured dentist on their hit show, Extreme Makeover. The pilot was shot in 2003 and aired in October. All I did for those 3 patients was Zoom. I did Zoom whitening. I invented Zoom, not Zoom video conferencing. I wish I did, but Zoom tooth whitening. So I Zoomed their teeth and we aired the pilot, and it got one of the highest ratings of any pilot ABC had ever released. So we immediately get picked up for 22 episodes for our first season. So starting January, we're going to film 22 seasons. So my first patient in the first season needed 20 porcelain veneers. She had dark, gross, ugly, crooked, stained, broken teeth. Right?
I assume these are
Did she see that?
These are adjectives.
Oh, you're a good learner. Yeah, she told me her teeth were disgusting, and I agreed. So we were going to do 20 porcelain veneers, 10 uppers, 10 lowers, right? At the time, I was charging $1,500 a tooth. I don't charge that anymore, but at the time I was. So ABC asked me to send them an invoice. So it's $30,000. They freaked out. So I get a phone call, Dr. Bill, $30,000? I'm like, well, yeah. They said, we didn't budget that much money for dentistry. Can you just do 3 veneers? I'm like, what, like every other tooth? No. I mean, she needs 20. And I tell kids at LEAP, there will be life-defining moments that you have. Sometimes you plan them, sometimes you don't. And I didn't plan this, but it was. Every single person on Extreme Makeover got paid. The hairstylist, the makeup artist, the weight trainers, the nutritionist, the plastic surgeon, everybody, but me, the dentist. Why? When ABC asked me to do 3 veneers, I said, I'll tell you what, I'll do all the dentistry for free under 3 conditions. Number 1, I'm the only dentist. I don't want other dentists on there, especially if they picked a bad one, then people think that I did a bad job. Number 2, you need to highlight Zoom tooth whitening in every episode. And number 3, you need to mention Da Vinci veneers every time we do porcelain veneers, because I didn't want to pay a $20,000 lab bill every time I was doing these cases and I wasn't getting paid. That would never happen in reality TV today, ever. But they didn't know, and they're like, fine. So that was my contract with them. Well, net result, my company started off, Discus Dental, we did 2 million, 4 million, 8 million, 60. We just kind of plateaued at like 64 million. We couldn't break that barrier. The year I was on Extreme Makeover, the first year we did 101 million.
A lot of people like me too. I stop at 64 million and then just over and above that, I slow down. 64 million seems like an important space to,
you need to go on reality TV.
All right.
The second year we did 136 million. And the third year, we did almost 200 million in sales.
Wow.
And people literally walked into dental offices and said, I want to get Zoom. That was like music to my ears. And for any dentist who didn't know what Zoom whitening was, guess what? They learned right away and they bought our system. Our sales exploded. So yeah, ABC didn't pay me, but I did okay.
You know, this idea, really, I'm reading a Purple Cow, and yeah, I love Seth Godin, and really appreciating some of the things that he's talking about here. And it seems to me there's a couple strategies or a couple tactics or maybe a couple maneuvers or business decisions you made, whatever you want to call it, that are a little bit non-conventional here. You know, on the one hand, you know, you're going to get paid for your services, but you're going to get paid in a way that your customer is really happy to have you be what you do and doesn't have to pay from their own coffers, doesn't have to feel the pain of getting you paid. So there's that. And, you know, you are introducing a purple cow when you introduce Zoom to this population. It sounds like nobody, like you invented it. So it wasn't there before you did it. And now it became a household term inside the world of national, perhaps international dentistry. And then you sort of created a, know, trust, like, knowing you, liking you, trusting you, created the opportunity for each and every customer who wanted to have their, veneers zoomed or their teeth zoomed to be able to walk into any dentist office on your behalf and ask for something that you invented. It's completely brilliant.
See, you hit the nail on the head. Here's the deal. It wasn't that I became so successful. All of dentistry did. They estimated that as a result of our show, cosmetic dentistry increased by 30% immediately all across North America. So I would be walking in airports and dentists would walk up to me and say, thank you for what you've done for my practice. Because I wasn't treating all these patients. You also have to remember, this is the first time in the history of TV or movies that dentistry was ever highlighted in a positive way. I mean, think about it. Little Shop of Horrors, Marathon Man, WC Field. I mean, this was not a good thing to be a dentist. We were the ridicule. We were the torture. It was horrible. And ABC gave me an opportunity to say, hey, look, if your mouth is really messed up, we can fix you. And it gave so many people the courage to finally go to their dentist and say, hey, I'm suffering, help me.
So you didn't really,
this is a beautiful thing.
Beyond creating a technology, you created a paradigm shift. That's kind of what I'm hearing.
I won't take the credit for it. I mean, ABC did. Howard Schultz, the late Howard Schultz, not Starbucks Howard Schultz, from Lighthearted Entertainment, came up with the idea for Extreme Makeover. And, when I first was approached by them to be the dentist on the show, reality TV was in its infancy. I didn't know if this was going to be good, this could be bad. I didn't know if they were going to make these patients look good or look bad. And after meeting with them a few times, I realized that really their heart was in the right place, and they really wanted to help people who were suffering because of their appearance, an opportunity to change it and not be stigmatized and really like looked down upon, but encourage them. A lot of the people that I saw were people with cleft lip, cleft palate, people that had genetic anomalies. I mean, things that they really suffered with, and we were able to give them an opportunity to have a whole new life and feel confident about the way they look.
Brilliant.
So it's the combination of the media and you. So you instinctually went towards media as a direction, which is maybe a first for any dentist.
It really wasn't instinctual. It was really an opportunity. I opened up my practice. I mean, this is a fun little story. I graduated dental school. I told you I grew up poor. I had never seen anything. The only travel I had ever done, I was a UCLA yell leader. I was a gymnast. So I got to tumble at football games. So the only traveling I had ever done was with the UCLA football team, right? So here I graduate dental school. I'm the youngest graduate in the whole country. I'm like 23 years old. And I'm thinking, I'm never going to see the world. Like I can take a little week here or there, but once you start dentistry, you can't take a year off. So I heard about a clinic in Switzerland that hired one American dentist a year. Problem was they had 400 applicants. Why should they hire me? No good reason. I had no experience. I didn't speak French. I had nothing going for me. But what I did was I had every professor in my dental school that I knew write a letter of recommendation for me. And they were glowing letters. You know how I know, Sam?
How?
I wrote them all. Every one of them. I would say, hey, Sam, can you write me a letter? You'd be like, and then I say, I'll write it for you, just personalize it. So I did that. And I soon realized that the letters were getting me nowhere. Then I started calling the director on a weekly basis. Now, back in 1983, you might not know this because you were a little boy, but it was not easy to make a long distance phone call. You had to have the long distance operator and this and that. It wasn't easy.
I remember.
So I started calling the director, and I realized soon that that wasn't getting me anywhere. And one day I'm on the phone with him and I had another life-defining moment, not planned. I don't even know where it came from. I guess I heard somewhere that the best way to actually get to know somebody in business is to take them to lunch. So I said to him, can I take you to lunch? He said, lunch? You're in San Francisco and I'm in Lausanne, Switzerland. I said, no problem. I'll fly out. Well, that was even funnier because I had no money. But he said yes. I took out a loan. I flew to Switzerland. And guess what? I think I'm the only applicant who did that. And guess who got the job?
There's a good example of not waiting for an opportunity, but making an opportunity.
And also, successful people do the things that unsuccessful people are not willing to do. And he hired me, and it was a life changer. I had an amazing 2-year experience there. I lived and worked in the hospital. I made lifelong great friends. Je peux pas français maintenant, avant je peux pas. I'm completely fluent in French. I learned how to ski. I mean, it really was an amazing experience for me. I immediately came home from Switzerland and married a German woman. I mean, that probably wouldn't have happened. So, it was an awesome experience.
Some of what you're talking about is, I appreciate the inherent effort to be humble about it. It just happened to, let's give ABC credit. Let's give Extreme Makeover credit, or let's give, the luck of the draw that you were, somehow willing to fly 8,000 miles to go to lunch. What I'm hearing is that on the front edge of decision making, for you to get the life that you now have created for yourself, which frankly, Bill, is iconic in its own way, it meant a whole series of decisions on the front edge that maybe people who are just a bit less successful or unsuccessful wouldn't even consider doing. Not only do you consider and design these movements, but then you actually do them. You're like, yeah, I'll take you to lunch, Oh, yeah, what do you mean? Oh, yeah, I'll be there tomorrow. It's like, wow, it's an extraordinary maneuver. And in fact, it did change your whole life. Everything downstream from that lunch has been built in many ways on that lunch.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something, and I really had this epiphany at my 40th high school reunion. There were some guys in my class they were like the most popular, best looking, athletic. And I'm sitting here looking at these guys, and today they did nothing with their lives, nothing. The majority of my high school, I'm looking at it and I'm asking people like, so what have you done? And I don't know. I always just took the bull by the horns and did everything I could do, and no regrets. And I'll tell you something I teach my kids at Leap. I never fail, ever. Because if I go to do something and it doesn't come out the way I want it to, I don't look at that as failure. I look at that as practice. Then you do it again and again and again and again until you finally succeed. You only fail when you quit. And you need to change your mindset. You know, this whole thing that we think like practice makes perfect. No, practice makes permanent. You can get really good at doing it the wrong way. You need to change. You need to evolve. You need to find a mentor. That's what I love about Leap is we introduce kids to successful mentors so that they can find kind of shortcuts to success. And you know, the one thing that kids today have that we didn't even dream of, the internet. You can pretty much look up anything and learn. You know, we couldn't do that. We got a Encyclopedia Britannica every 3 or 4 years. And as soon as you got it, it was outdated and it didn't have everything.
So, Bill, so speaking of mentorship, is your ambition 100% innate, or was there a mentor in your life who you looked up to when you were a kid and said, I want to follow in this guy's footsteps and do things the way that they are doing? Was this an innate drive that you always had that was just part of who you were? Or was this partly a learned trait?
You know, I think that my drive and my motivation was always in me. Call it innate. I don't know why. Sam, I was a weird kid. Like I knew it. I knew I was an outlier. I knew I was bizarre. I was 5 years old and I came home from my first day of kindergarten. My parents said, Bill, how was school? I said, you know, school's okay, but the kids in my class are so immature. Who says that at 5? Then at 6, I came home from school and I told my parents I wanted to have a conference with them. A conference? My mom's like, what kind of conference? I said, you and dad sit down and we need to discuss something. So my parents sit down and I said, listen, I know how to read. They said, yes, you do. And you're very good at it. Therefore, I don't think I need to go to school anymore. I'll just read everything I need to learn. They said, no, you're still going to school. I'm like, okay. And that's the other thing. This is another thing that was weird. Like, I never argued with my parents. I asked my mom, even like a few weeks ago, I'm like, Mom, I don't ever remember getting punished or like getting in trouble as a kid. Like, did I just like block that out? She goes, no, you were pretty much the perfect kid. I always figured, you know, there's a right way and a wrong way. Why do the wrong way? You know,
It occurs to me
did the right way.
It occurs to me how easy it would be potentially in a slightly different mindset for this to turn into cynicism and depression about the state of the world. Looking at the world around you, growing up around kids who weren't motivated and thinking, man, what is wrong with people? And then cultivating a sort of a dark cynicism about people versus continuing to cultivate that inspiration. Has there ever been sort of a shadow aspect of this where there's been any kind of underlying cynicism that you've had to sort of work with?
Not really. I'll tell you something. I know black, I know white, and a lot of times there's gray, but a lot of times there is no gray. If I see something that's really a black and white thing, and I really believe something is black, I'm totally cool with it. Let's take this pandemic. You know, I'm thoroughly disappointed with the American Dental Association and the California Dental Association. They gave us no guidance, literally. I mean, this thing breaks out and I'm waiting and we're going on their website. We're calling it like, they're just like, oh, they had no. So I'm luckily in a mastermind group of 10 amazing dentists. And we sat and together collectively did a lot of research and figured out a safe way to treat our patients and protect ourselves and our team members, you know, and we collectively came up with a great protocol, right? So about a month ago, Lisa Vanderpump is my patient. Lisa says, you know, we're not letting people come into our restaurant anymore unless they show a vaccine card. I'm like, great. So I called the American Dental Association. I said, hey, are we allowed to ask patients to present a vaccine card before they come into the office. Completely non-committal. No, I said, well, is it illegal if I do that? Again, no. So I said, you know what? Screw it. We're just doing it. So I had my assistant who calls to confirm all the appointments, basically tell my patients, if you want to be seen in our office, you need to present a vaccine card, or you can come 15 minutes early, pay a $50 fee, and we'll do a rapid COVID test. But other than that, you can't go to the office. Now, is that legal? Well, I know for sure it's not illegal, but I work with 25 people who I'm responsible for. I care about these people. I don't want people in my office getting sick because somebody comes in and infects them. So I made a decision and I went with it. And the American Dental Association wimped out. The California Dental wimped out, but I didn't wimp out. And I'll tell you, 99% of my patients, when they get that phone call, are like, wow, thank you so much for taking care of our safety like that. So I just knew that was the right thing to do. And if I got any pushback, there was one patient who absolutely will not get vaccinated and would not do a COVID test. You know what? There are other dentists in LA. I'm okay with that.
Your conviction to your ideas of how to move things forward is inspiring. It's naturally inspiring. And I know from a lot of interviews that I've had with other people, and frankly, from being me, that the things I say that are inspiring, whatever that is, I don't know that it's inspiring. I'm just saying the next thing that's on my mind. I'm just answering the next question. I'm just thinking and then producing some sort of sounds to reflect whatever it is that I think I want to communicate. I wonder if you know that each and every sentence or idea sort of places you on the front end, at least up until now in this conversation, puts you on the front end, on the board. What is that? It's not really a vortex, at the front edge of an arrow, where you're left with making what turns out to be a really important paradigmatic impact on whatever's going to happen downstream. And then you do something, but you do it decisively. You just do it. You do it because, given right and wrong, given good and bad, given your stand for or against something, you simply take the step that is right for you, the black step or the white step or the right step, and then you live with that decisive nature. And even if it's no one's ever done it before, it lives as truth for you. And I just want to somehow give a shout out to that, because I think that's what makes you so marvelous in many ways, is that you out there doing something new, and upon having done it, you just own it. Like, yeah, that's the way this went. Like, does that ring a bell for you?
Yeah. And I'll tell you, when I had that biggest epiphany, I don't know, what your connection is with like TV and stuff like that. But when you're on a show like The Tonight Show or Rosie or Ellen or any of these shows, they stick you in a little room with a producer and they talk to you for like an hour. It's a shotgun. They're asking you all kinds of stuff just to kind of see what resonates with their audience. Then when you go out and you do your segment, which is anywhere from 6 to 12 minutes, it's called live to tape. So it looks like they're filming it live, but it's actually taped and then played later on, right? But it's usually not cut, it's one segment. And when you're doing that on the air, it's basically a regurgitation of what you just did in the little green room, right? One of the only people who doesn't do that is Oprah. Oprah has such a vast and extensive research team that when you walk out on the stage with Oprah, she knows more about you than you know about you. I'm on stage with Oprah. This was 2006. She says, Dr. Bill, you have had a career unlike any other dentist in the history of dentistry. What is it that inspires you to think so far outside the box? That was not a common phrase back in 2006. And I honestly just looked at her and I said, what box?
Exactly.
And
That's
we
the only
and we
answer.
cracked up and we cracked up, and that pretty much explains my entire life. I've never been in a box. I've never in my life thought, oh my gosh, I can't do that. No, I thought, okay, how can I do that? You know, I mean, the biggest reason that young kids don't do things is the fear of failure. I never had a fear of failure because, like I said, I never thought I'll fail if I don't get it right the first time it's practice. I'll just do it till I get it right. But so many kids are so petrified of failing that they never even take that first step. And that's a shame. That's a real shame.
It occurs to me how, a part of what we are doing here with this podcast is we are, like Fred said earlier, we're finding that fine line between sanity and insanity in the modern world. And part of what I'm reflecting on as you're sharing, Bill, is the way in which sanity is oftentimes sort of a known reality construct. How do I fit in with a known reality construct? And there are so many things changing in the modern world so quickly that if you are trying to require the world around you to fit into a preconceived box, then you might very well feel a little insane. But if you throw out the box or never had the box, like what you're talking about, then you can actually move and pivot and experience life in a more dynamic manner because you don't have an idea of what should be that is no longer existing or that is changing as rapidly as it is.
I agree, 100%.
Along those same lines, there's something like when you do go out of the box, whether or not you recognize that there was a box and you do something that no one's ever done, it flat out meets the definition for being insane. Sort of when insanity is defined, sanity and insanity are frequently defined by the the median, the mean, the acceptable behaviors that are evidence-based positive, or like what people do in situations like this is something like that. But in your case, there is a flashpoint when you're up to doing something that no one's ever done that leaves you open to be ostracized or thrown off the island, like right now. Like, no, we don't do that, Dr. Bill. That isn't how we do things. And therefore, it's possible that you could get chipped off of the mainstream when you do that. And the other possibility, and speaking a little bit as a psychiatrist in this way, is that instantly you could be seen as being so many deviations, standard deviations from the mean, that the only way to define you would be crazy. You're crazy compared to normal. You're abnormal. You're insane. When you say there is no box, I kind of saw that coming. And then I was like, well, what about your parents? Your parents, like you said, you're kind of the perfect child, Bill. Well, how did that be that a 5-year-old who's calling his friends immature and a 6-year-old who's calling a conference with his parents to tell them that he wants to drop out of school because it's no longer necessary? How is that ingested by your, I want to give a lot of credit to your parents, I guess, for you being so far out of the box, so much questioning of authority and having you feel entirely comfortable with doing so, and them never seeing you as being abnormal or aberrant. So there's something like your parents deserve an extra focus at this point.
Well, you know what? Let's go back. Okay. My mother was the most beautiful, most popular, radiant woman in her high school. They went to Fairfax High. It was 100% Jewish at the time. It was like a little Jewish ghetto, right? And my mother was Queen Bee. And there were two men who were dating my mother, Sandy Dorfman and Les Geyer. And Les Geyer was very ostentatious and kind of like a big mocker, on campus and whatnot. And he told Sandy Dorfman, hey, stop dating Barbara. I'm going to marry her. They were like 17. Sandy Dorfman's like, I'm not getting married anytime soon. So my mother married Les Geyer. Well, it was a mistake. She married a man. She had 3 children right away. He ended up not being a good guy. And I don't need to get into the weeds with it, but at a certain point, my mom was 24 years old. She had me, 3, Gary, 2, and Brian, 1, and she left him. He got involved with the mafia. He was an alcoholic. I mean, on and on and on and on. And so my mom left him because she didn't want us growing up with that. So at 3 years old, I was told I was the man of the house,
Mm.
and I'm changing my brother's diapers and helping cook meals and going to the store with my mother at 4. I mean, I grew up an adult. I was never a little kid. When I was 5, my mother remarried Sandy Dorfman, who is a lovely, lovely man. I don't know, Sam, if you ever met my father. He's been around a few times, but he was married to a beautiful woman who unfortunately died in labor when my brother David was born. And so here he is, this widower with a little baby. My mother is, a divorcee, which was not very common back then, with 3 boys. And somebody who had stayed in touch with both of them said, hey, you guys should get together. And they went on one date, and then they've been together ever since.
Mm.
So Sandy Dorfman adopted my brothers and I, and my mother adopted David. And so now we were 4 boys. And then together they had my sister Jody. But the point is, like, I was never a child. I never had the opportunity to just be a little kid. I was always a grown-up. I was always, responsible. I was always in charge of taking care of my brothers, of, doing a lot of things that most little kids. So I think that a lot of my personality was formed by the fact that I had so much responsibility as a kid. And because we really didn't have money, when I was 5, I remember I wanted, these toys. And my parents said, go get a job. So I went knocking door to door and asked people if I could be their gardener. And I would pull weeds, in their yards for 25 cents an hour. And so I've been working since 5 and never stopped.
Is that early maturity something that you see in a lot of the kids who are part of the LEAP program as well?
No, my childhood is nothing like kids I see today.
Mm.
I mean, we spoil kids rotten today.
Mm-hmm.
We just do. When I got accepted to UCLA, I got a letter in the mail. I opened it up in the living room, like, Mom, Dad, I got into UCLA and I got a full scholarship. They're like, oh, wow, honey, that's so amazing. They didn't even know I applied. Okay. My 3 girls all went to college. I wrote their essays with them. I feel like I got accepted every time they got accepted. It's a whole different world. There was no such thing as participation trophies. You won, you got a trophy. You know what I mean? It's a whole different world today.
Yeah.
Is it better? I don't know. There's so many things today I just don't understand, Sam. Some things are better, some things aren't, but it's very confusing for a lot of kids today.
I guess what I'm
mean,
saying is there a level of responsibility that is rare that you discover in your LEAP kids? Or is
the
it, are
kids that I see that come to LEAP that I feel have an extraordinary amount of responsibility are kids that come from families where they actually need to step up and where they're given responsibilities, and these are families normally with hardships. 60% of the kids that come to LEAP are kids that come from impoverished family on scholarships. We go raise money for them, and those are the ones that I see that, look, my kids grew up in Beverly Hills. I grew up in Granada Hills. The only common thing there was hills. But I didn't want my kids growing up like a lot of their friends grew up. So at an early age, like at 5, I started taking my kids on humanitarian trips all over the world so they could see what it was like to live in poverty and to give dental care to kids who had never been to a dentist or could ever go to a dentist. I wanted my kids to really realize that they were living in a really different, unique kind of community and not what the rest of the world lives in.
Thanks, Bill. I have another question for you, which is, I finally noticed a missing, I finally noticed a missing in your upbringing, something that actually like is deficient. And with all due respect, the deficiency is that, as you said a number of times, you really didn't get the opportunity to be a child. You really didn't get an opportunity to sort of grow at the pace of what, natural development may have allowed. By 3 or 4 years old, now you're making decisions no wonder you get to kindergarten and see these kids, nose picking, block throwing kids as being, you've already worked out budgets and probably done taxes for a year at 5 years old. So these kids seem like they're, immature. If you would be able to get your childhood back, or maybe you're already doing it, what is it that you may have longed for, may have wished you would have had you grown up with a slower pace or with one that allowed you to go naturally through the stages of early childhood?
Honestly, Fred, I have no regrets. It was great. I'm super happy. I'll tell you something. Through a series of events and really good business decisions, and we were able to grow our company, Discus Dental, from 0 to $1.3 billion in sales before we sold it to Philips in 2010. And one of the things at Leap I teach the kids is you got to be a 10. Walk like a 10, talk like a 10, act like a 10, but most importantly, surround yourself with other kids that are 10s. We give them these little pop sockets, right, for their phones. And ironically, you could say it's a universe. I'm not a big universe guy, but we sold Discus Dental on 10-10-10 at 10 a.m. And look, I always knew as a dentist, I'd be comfortable. I never in my life imagined what it would be like to grow a company from 0 to $1.3 billion and sell it. And I will tell you, I wake up the happiest, most grateful person I know every single day of my life. I take none of that for granted. I think that my whole childhood and the whole journey really paved the way for a lot of what's happened. And, like I said at the beginning of this, my mantra is learn so you can earn and then return. And that's really what I want to do these days, is I really want to just make our messed up, crazy COVID world as good as I can make it. Just one person just trying to make this a better world for everybody. And I think if we all did that, and you know what? It doesn't take a lot. If you don't have riches, if you don't have, just go out and be nice to people, smile at people. I mean, that already makes the world a better place. That's what I really want to do in my life now.
Yeah, and that points a little bit to the choice of my shirt today. So I just want to get that in there.
It makes me super happy, Fred.
I know. I appreciate that. That's good.
And I think it would look really good in my background here with the fish.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So we've talked about Leap in a way that is mostly conceptual at this point, and I would love to have you share what Leap looks like for parents out there who might want to send their kids to Leap, or for, I don't know how young our audience gets, but maybe there's kids out there who would want to go to Leap.
Yeah,
so let's talk about what it actually looks like.
Leap is a motivational leadership program for high school and college students age 15 to 25. It's always been about 500 students attending every year. 2019 was the last time that happened. 2020, it was fully virtual. This year, we had 50 kids live and about 1,000 kids virtually. But we basically teach students skills they need to be successful in life: time management, money management, communication skills, networking skills, how to apply for a job, how to write a resume. I mean, on and on and on. And we get amazing speakers. Anthony Hopkins, Mark Wahlberg, Kathy Bates, Paula Abdul, Michael Strahan, Usher, Jason Alexander, Seth Green. I mean, I could go on and on and on. We're getting next year's Leap. I'm going to have Richard Branson, Elon Musk. I mean, amazing, amazing speakers. And these people share the secrets of their success with these kids. And I mean, I honestly would tell you, if you're a parent with a kid 15 to 25 and you don't send them the Leap, you're a bad parent.
Richard Branson and Elon Musk. Yeah, I guess you are talking about kind of high level success there.
Yeah, it's really this target population. This is the population I work with too, Bill. I'm not sure you're aware of that, but my avatar, my demographic avatar of choice is people between the ages of 15 and 30. So, it's the crew that I'm working with respect to their own sense of mental health, their own sense of mental illness, their own sense of discomfort in the world, or having not yet found a space for that they can call a purpose or direction, or even a point, like why to wake up, or why, what to do when, or how to interact with others business-wise, or just regular personal interactivity. And what are you finding with respect to where you were growing up that you're now able to provide for these children? Is it like be like me, so that, or is there something like discover your why, or what is it that these kids learn by being in Leap that emanates from the top of the mountain at Bill Dorfman?
I think the very first thing that we try and instill in them is this whole thing about being a 10. Look, a lot of these kids that come to this program, especially these scholarship students that grew up in really impoverished areas, nobody's ever told them they're good at anything, ever. And I'll tell you what else works at Leap. I have 3 daughters. If I tell my daughters to do something emphatically, they're not going to do it. Now, if you're an expert in psychology and it has to do with psychology and you tell them to do it, they might do it. But if 10 of their girlfriends tell them to do something, guess what happens? Gets done. The reason why Leap works is we put these kids in groups with 10 other kids and a coach who basically oversees their group and kind of guides them, and they all support each other. And it's a really beautiful thing. And a lot of these kids make best friends for the rest of their life at the Leap program. So it's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, that's surrounding oneself with other people who are trying to be 10s, who are constantly trying to be 10s. That is a huge piece here. That's something that I didn't have, frankly, for a long, long time in my own life. In fact, it's only been in recent years that I've felt as though I was really surrounding myself with people who are at a caliber greater than my own. And I know that it actually had huge consequences on my own life to not be surrounding myself with those who could operate at that caliber. Looking back, you wonder what might have been different. Had I been, say, in Leap at the age of 15, had it existed at that time, how things might have been different. And not that I look back on my life with regrets. I feel that everything has happened the way it has happened. And, whether or not we look through the lens of everything happens for a reason or not, doesn't really matter so much, because it was what happened. And I don't have regrets. And I learned a tremendous amount through the experience that I had. And at the same time, I can't help but wonder what things might have been like had I been in that environment where I was surrounded by other kids my age who were operating at that level and really encouraging each other to operate at that level.
Well, I'll tell you something. One of the things we teach at Leap where you don't learn anywhere else is appreciation. Kids aren't appreciative today. And we give them a little stack of notes called I Appreciate Notes. And throughout the week, we ask them to write a note Anytime somebody does something that you appreciate, whether it's a speaker, another student in your program, at the end of LEAP 2019, we had 450 kids. I got 450 I appreciate notes. 99.9% of them said, Dr. Bill, I appreciate LEAP and your whole team because you guys changed my life. And I know we did. Now I said 99.9%. The 1% that didn't write that said, hey, Dr. Bill, LEAP saved my life. And I know it did. There are kids that come into that program that are like right on the edge, man. And all they need is that little bit of love and support, that little bit of, of a community to ground them and make them feel like somebody cares. And that's so important. So LEAP isn't just a life-changing program, it's a life-saving program.
Before we lose this thread, how do people contribute to that scholarship program?
It's super easy. If you have a student that you would like to go to LEAP, just go to leapfoundation.com, LEAP foundation.com. If you want to sponsor kids, we have a donate slot on there. You just go to the website. You could donate. You can sponsor a kid. You could sponsor half a kid. I mean, a quarter of a kid. I mean, every little bit helps. You'll really be doing a great thing for a young student.
Beautiful.
Are you familiar with a man named Bill Austin? You know Bill Austin?
I'm not.
Okay, so Bill created a world around hearing aids. He's the inventor of the Starkey hearing aid back in the day. And then he became, a mega mogul in the world of just, he was a med student and he dropped out of medical school. And then he became a mogul in the world of he was tinkering with things as a kid, tinkering with radio pieces and television. And then he created this new hearing aid. And now he's, essentially on a mission out of Minnesota to teach the world to hear. And there's a similar, there's a similar vein to who you are and who he is, meaning that there's something about you, Bill, in making this huge impact, this legacy level impact in this short lifetime of ours. And then acknowledging cleanly that your life has been brilliant and that you have made a dent in the world while you were here, and you continue to make a dent in this really vulnerable population of late adolescents and young adults. And so I'd really like to honor that, like you really are. And I just get this idea that so many people have honored you or thrown accolades at you that somehow this will just be heard as another one. But there's something like, no, really, dude, like to get this done during these last 50 something or 60 something years, whatever, is very remarkable, and that you're continuing to make just a huge life-saving or life-changing difference with this vulnerable and very important population. And it's just hats off to everything you're doing, Bill. It's really wonderful. Thank you.
Fred and Sam, thank you for the opportunity. This was a lot of fun sharing this. I am probably the most accessible person you've ever met. I think I'm the only person with 1.4 million followers who actually answers all my DMs. So if you need to reach me, you can reach me on Instagram. Just go to drbilldorfman.com. It's drbill, B-I-L-L, Dorfman.com. I promise it's not a bot. It's actually me. And I promise it's me who's actually responding. So, and if you are a parent or you are a student 15 to 25, LEAP 2022, hopefully we'll all be in person. This year, the stipulation was you just had to be vaccinated. So I'm sure that will be the same for next year. And I hope to see you there.
Beautiful.
We love you, Bill.
Thank you for being here. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for everything that you're doing for the world.
Yeah.
Thanks. And thank you guys too.
You're welcome.
I know.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye, Bill. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hey, welcome to Humanity Family. It's Ryan Levesque here, co-producer of the show. I truly hope you enjoyed Dr. Fred's in-depth conversation today. If you did, and if the conversations we share each week are making a difference for you, could you please take just a moment to leave a rating and a short review on Apple Podcasts? Your enthusiastic review helps new listeners discover the show. Your support here really does make a difference. I'd also like to invite you to reach out to a friend or two who would appreciate today's episode. Maybe shoot them a quick text or email, or maybe pick up the phone and invite them to subscribe to the Welcome to Humanity podcast so they can be enriched from the discovery of amazing ideas and insights each week. As always, you can find past episodes along with the complete show notes and links at welcometohumanity.net/podcast. If you'd like to explore how working one-on-one with Dr. Fred can help you break through whatever challenges you might be facing with your mental health or well-being, leading to new levels of freedom and vitality, I invite you to reach out to us directly by emailing Dr. Fred at welcometohumanity.net. That's DRFRED at welcometohumanity.net. Thanks so much for listening, and keep an ear out for another captivating conversation next week. Have a beautiful day, a beautiful week, and indeed, a beautiful life. Welcome to Humanity.